Have you ever noticed how the sharpest minds often stand alone? Why is it that those who see through the fog of human folly, who grasp the hidden currents of the world, end up misunderstood or isolated? It's no accident. Wisdom, that rare gift that lets you pierce the veil of illusion, can be your greatest ally or your heaviest burden. If you've ever felt like your insights alienate others, like speaking the truth sparks conflict rather than clarity, then listen closely. This isn't just about philosophy, it's about how to wield your mind like a master strategist in the game of life. To navigate a world that often punishes clarity, you must master an art that the greatest thinkers of history perfected: the power of restraint. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, once said, "I know that I know nothing." On the surface, it sounds humble, almost self-deprecating. But dig deeper and you'll see it's a masterstroke of intellectual strategy. In a world where everyone clamors to prove their brilliance, Socrates chose restraint. He didn't flaunt his intellect. He used it like a scalpel, cutting through dogma with questions, not declarations. Why? Because he understood a brutal truth. Raw intelligence, when unleashed without care, breeds envy, resentment, and resistance. To most people, your clarity is a mirror they don't want to face. Your logic, no matter how sound, feels like a challenge to their ego. Socrates' restraint wasn't weakness. It was a calculated move to preserve his influence while exposing the flaws in others' thinking. Think about it. How many times have you shared a sharp observation only to be met with cold stares or defensive retorts? How often have you pointed out a flaw in someone's reasoning, expecting gratitude, but received hostility instead? This isn't because you're wrong, it's because the human psyche recoils from being exposed. People don't crave truth, they crave comfort. And when you disrupt that comfort with unfiltered insight, you become a threat. This dynamic is as old as humanity itself. The ancient Greek playwright Sophocles captured it in his tragedies, where prophets like Tiresias were revered but feared, their truths too piercing for the masses to bear. This is where many brilliant minds falter. They believe that knowing more is enough, that truth alone will win the day. But philosophy teaches us otherwise. Knowledge is only half the battle. The other half is strategy. It's not enough to see the world clearly. You must learn to navigate its shadows. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it bluntly: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." True power lies not in shouting your wisdom from the rooftops, but in choosing when to speak, when to act, and when to hold back. Restraint in this sense is not passivity, it's precision. It's the difference between a swordsman slashing wildly and one who strikes only when the moment is perfect. Let's break this down with a practical scenario. Imagine you're in a heated discussion at work or among friends. Someone spouts an idea so flawed it's almost laughable, a proposal riddled with logical holes, or an opinion steeped in bias. Your instinct is to dismantle it, to lay bare its contradictions with surgical precision. But pause for a moment. What do you gain? A fleeting moment of intellectual triumph? Now consider what you lose: the goodwill of the room, the trust of your peers, or worse, their respect. Correcting someone publicly doesn't change their mind. It entrenches them. Their ego, bruised and cornered, will double down, and you'll be left as the villain, not the victor. This is a lesson drawn from the annals of history. Consider Galileo, whose brilliant astronomical insights were met with resistance, not because they were false, but because they threatened the established order. His lack of restraint in challenging the church cost him his freedom. Here's where philosophy offers a counterintuitive lesson. Sometimes the wisest move is to say nothing, not out of cowardice, but out of calculation. By holding back, you preserve your influence. You let the other person's folly unravel on its own. Lao Tzu, the Taoist sage, wrote, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Silence isn't surrender. It's a weapon. It's the art of letting others dig their own graves while you stand above the fray, untouched. This principle is echoed in modern psychology, where studies on persuasion show that people are more likely to change their views when they arrive at the conclusion themselves, not when it's forced upon them. This is what I call the power of restraint. It's not about dimming your light or pretending to be less than you are. It's about deploying your intellect with precision. Think of it like a chess grandmaster. They don't make every move they can. They wait for the perfect moment to strike. In life, the same principle applies. The truly wise don't need to prove their superiority in every conversation. They know that real influence comes from subtlety, not spectacle. Take Benjamin Franklin, a polymath whose brilliance shaped early America. Franklin was known for his wit and wisdom, but he rarely dominated conversations. Instead, he used humor and gentle questions to guide others, earning trust and influence without alienating his peers. His autobiography reveals a man who deliberately cultivated an image of humility to disarm his rivals, a tactic that allowed him to navigate the treacherous politics of his time. Let's take this further. Why do the most insightful people often feel so alone? It's because society rewards conformity over clarity. The masses cling to mediocrity. It's safe, predictable, unchallenging. Mediocrity builds tribes. Brilliance builds barriers. When you see what others can't, you become an outsider by default. Nietzsche warned of this when he spoke of the herd mentality. The herd doesn't hate you for being wrong. It hates you for being different. Your ability to question, to dissect, to transcend their comfortable illusions makes you a target. This isolation can feel like a curse, but it's also a sign of your potential. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, often a solitary figure, argued that genius walks alone because it sees beyond the horizon of the common mind. But here's the twist. You don't have to fight this dynamic head-on. Philosophy teaches us to work with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Instead of clashing with the herd, learn to move through it undetected. This is where the concept of strategic humility comes in. By downplaying your insight, by blending into the crowd when it serves you, you disarm their defenses. You become a wolf in sheep's clothing, free to observe, to plan, to act when the moment is right. This tactic is rooted in the teachings of Sun Tzu, whose art of war emphasizes winning without fighting. By appearing unthreatening, you gain the freedom to maneuver, unnoticed by those who would oppose you. Picture this scenario. You're at a social gathering, and someone is confidently spewing nonsense, perhaps a baseless political opinion or a misinformed take on a complex issue. The urge to correct them is overwhelming, but instead you smile, nod, and ask a gentle question, one that nudges them toward their own contradiction without you saying a word. For example, if they claim a policy will solve all economic woes, you might ask, how do you think that would affect small businesses in the long term? They stumble, the group notices, and you've exposed their error without firing a shot. That's the power of restraint. You've won not by dominating the conversation, but by steering it invisibly. This approach mirrors the Socratic method, where questions lead others to confront their own ignorance without direct confrontation. This approach echoes the wisdom of Machiavelli, who understood that power thrives in the shadows. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The true players are those who operate unseen, shaping outcomes while others squabble for attention. They don't need validation, they need results. And results come from patience, from knowing when to reveal your hand and when to keep it close. Consider the example of Queen Elizabeth I of England, a master of restraint. In a male-dominated world, she wielded power not through brute force, but through careful diplomacy, strategic marriages, or the refusal thereof. Now let's talk about perception. The world doesn't judge you by your true worth, it judges you by the image you project. If you're seen as a know-it-all, you'll be dismissed. If you're seen as a threat, you'll be sidelined. But if you're seen as unassuming, approachable, even ordinary, you gain freedom. People lower their guard. They underestimate you. And in that space, you can work miracles. This principle is evident in the life of Abraham Lincoln, who cultivated a folksy, self-deprecating demeanor despite his towering intellect. By appearing as Honest Abe, He disarmed his opponents, allowing him to navigate the divisive politics of the Civil War era with unparalleled skill. This is where philosophy becomes a playbook for life. Take Plato's allegory of the cave. The prisoner who escapes the shadows and sees the sun returns to free his peers, only to be met with hostility. Why? Because truth is blinding to those unprepared for it. The lesson isn't to abandon truth, but to present it carefully. Guide others to it indirectly. Let them feel they've discovered it themselves. This is the art of influence, making others think your ideas are their own. Modern neuroscience supports this. Studies show that people are more likely to adopt ideas when they feel a sense of ownership over them, a phenomenon known as the endowment effect. Consider the great philosophers of history. They didn't win by shouting louder, they won by planting seeds. Socrates asked questions that led his opponents to unravel their own arguments. Descartes framed his radical doubt as a humble search for certainty. Even the enigmatic Diogenes, living in a barrel, used his eccentricities to provoke thought without preaching. They understood that true power lies in controlling the narrative, not the spotlight. Diogenes, for instance, once walked through Athens with a lantern in daylight, claiming he was searching for an honest man. His act was a silent critique of society's hypocrisy, far more powerful than any speech could have been. Let's delve deeper into a historical example to illustrate this. During the Renaissance, the scholar Erasmus of Rotterdam wielded immense influence not through bombast but through restraint. In an era of religious fanaticism, Erasmus critiqued the Catholic Church's excesses in his book In Praise of Folly, but he did so with satire and wit, cloaking his sharp insights and humor. This allowed him to challenge powerful institutions without being silenced, unlike many of his contemporaries. His restraint made him a trusted voice, shaping the intellectual currents that led to the Reformation. Erasmus shows us that restraint doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means choosing the battlefield and the weapon. So how do you apply this in your own life? Start by embracing strategic restraint. Stop trying to win every argument. Stop feeling the need to correct every mistake. Instead, observe, listen, learn the weaknesses, motives, and blind spots of those around you. Then when the time comes, act with precision. A single well-timed word can shift a room's perspective more than 1,000 shouted truths. For example, in a workplace setting, instead of openly challenging a colleague's flawed proposal, you might say, "That's an interesting idea. Have you considered how it might impact our timeline?" This subtle nudge preserves harmony while planting doubt, allowing the idea to collapse under its own weight. This brings us to the deepest layer of this philosophy: invulnerability. The ultimate goal isn't just to navigate the world, it's to rise above it. The Stoics taught that true freedom comes from mastering your reactions. If you're swayed by every insult, provoked by every slight, or desperate for every nod of approval, you're a slave. But if you can move through life untouched by the noise, unshaken by the chaos, you become something else entirely: untouchable. This is the essence of Stoic apatheia. Not apathy, but a state of inner calm that external events cannot disrupt. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, exemplified this. Despite ruling an empire beset by war and plague, he maintained his composure by focusing on what he could control: his thoughts and actions. Think of the most enduring figures in history. They weren't the ones chasing applause or dodging criticism. They were the ones who acted with purpose, who chose their battles, who let their results speak louder than their words. They were untouchable because they didn't need the world's permission to exist. Nelson Mandela, for instance, spent 27 years in prison, yet emerged without bitterness. His restraint in the face of injustice, his refusal to let anger dictate his actions, made him a global symbol of resilience and reconciliation. Mandela's life shows that restraint is not just a tactic, it's a way of being that transcends circumstances. Now let's address a common objection. Isn't restraint just a form of cowardice or inauthenticity? Doesn't holding back mean suppressing your true self? Not at all. Restraint is not about hiding who you are. It's about choosing how to express it. It's the difference between a poet who revises their work to perfection and one who publishes their first draft. Both are authentic, but one is strategic. Restraint allows you to align your actions with your goals, ensuring that your brilliance shines when it matters most. The philosopher Hannah Arendt argued that human freedom lies in our ability to act deliberately, not impulsively. Restraint is the exercise of that freedom. Here's a modern example to ground this idea. In the world of technology, Steve Jobs was known for his visionary ideas, but his success also stemmed from restraint. Jobs didn't reveal every idea he had. He curated Apple's products meticulously, unveiling them only when they were ready to reshape the market. His famous secrecy and focus on simplicity were forms of restraint that amplified his impact. Jobs understood that saying less, showing less, could create more anticipation and influence. Now here's the challenge. The world is a battlefield of egos, a maze of insecurities. Most people are trapped in it, reacting to every jab, chasing every fleeting reward. But you don't have to be. You can choose a different path. You can learn to hold back, to move with purpose, to shape the game without being seen. This is the power of restraint, not a retreat, but a revolution. It's a revolution because it shifts the power dynamic. Instead of being at the mercy of others' reactions, you become the one who sets the terms. You become the calm center in a chaotic world, the strategist who sees the board while others play blindly. If this resonates with you, if you feel that spark of recognition, then you're already halfway there. You've sensed this truth before, even if you couldn't name it. So now you have a choice. You can keep playing the old game, arguing, proving, reacting, or you can step into a new one. Observe more than you speak. Plan more than you reveal. Act only when it matters. Become the person the world can't predict, can't control, can't touch. To make this practical, try this exercise over the next week. In every conversation, pause before responding. Ask yourself, is speaking here necessary? Will it advance my goal? If the answer is no, hold back. Let silence do the work. Notice how people react, how the dynamic shifts. You'll be amazed at how much power lies in what you don't say. This practice, rooted in Stoic discipline, trains you to master your impulses, turning restraint into a habit. If you followed this far and you're ready to move differently, I want you to leave a comment below. Restraint is my strength. That's how I'll know you're one of the few who see the game for what it is. And if this has shifted your perspective, hit subscribe, because what's coming next on this channel is for those ready to master the art of living wisely in a noisy world. We'll explore more tools from philosophy, history, and psychology to help you navigate life with clarity and purpose. Until next time, remember this: the loudest voices fade fastest. The ones who change the world are those who know when to hold back. Embrace restraint, and you'll not only survive the chaos, you'll shape it.